Welcome to Main Street 2. This is our third shop, and this one has prints and maps and globes, like most of the others. But the specialty in the front here is railroads. We have Railway Express Agency sign from the early 1900s. We have rare maps of the early Alabama railroads as proposed. And here is the official Civil War northern map of the railroad system during the Civil War. And it's colored according to the gauge of the railroad, and there are about 3 or 4 different gauges, so it's amazing how they could get from one place to another. Here we have a Union Pacific Railroad. This is a very famous map because the Union Pacific was the first transcontinental railroad, and this is dated 1864 through 1868, just before the Golden Spike was driven in 1869 at Promontory Point. And this is a centennial celebration map with special framing. Then we also have Civil War material. We have Robert E. Lee and new military map of the United States, Prang Battle of Port Hudson on the Mississippi River, Magnus historical map of 150 miles around Richmond and insets of other battles, and it has Robert E. Lee, much younger Robert E. Lee, and General Grant, the 2 leaders. War trains, and here is the map of the United States showing how much land the U.S. gave away in the West, particularly, to the railroads to build them. Those lines express the amount of land, millions of acres. And Greyhound lines in the 1940s. And this is a proof sheet for a French game board, which would have probably folded in the middle. And it takes the very, very early planes, like 1912, 14, 15, I think probably prior to the First World War. And it travels all over Europe and the Mediterranean. And if you get to where you land safely in Paris, then by golly, you won. There's the Eiffel Tower. Then another part of transportation is steamships. Here we have in the United States lines, this is the Manhattan in the large portrait, and the 10 is the SS United States, sort of the flagship of the lines. An actual raised relief map by the USGS of the eastern United States section centering on Asheville and Knoxville. It's the Knoxville quadrant. As you can see, this is the most mountainous area in the southeast. All right, this is a British map of the early Confederate states as they thought they were going to happen in early 1861. And it takes in all the border states too, so it's a huge chunk of the east, 2/3 of the east. But that did not happen, and even the 11 states didn't happen for several months. A General Land Office map of the United States in the 1860s, and it shows the proposed railroads and the various territories. Yellow is for gold, blue is for silver, green is for copper. They have all of the major sites where they have discovered these minerals. So it is an enticement for the development of the West. This is an excellent example of large German cartography from the 1950s. This is landscape regions of the world, from the tundra to the Sahara, and with ocean currents. Quite a descriptive as far as topography and climate, but also just gorgeous, almost artwork. This is actually, I assume, a tablecloth map of the United States, only one I've seen. And it was done in the early 1950s. Everything from flamingos to groundhogs, railroads, planes, ships, and symbols of every state, like the oil wells in Oklahoma and Texas. This is a Phelps and Watson military map of the bordering southern states, actually most of the 2/3 of the United States. During the Civil War, during the very end of the Civil War, it folded into a booklet with covers, and this shows the red dots in blue are the various battles and skirmishes up to within a few months of the end of the war. And this was to inform people, particularly in the North where it was published, of the circumstances as far as battles and looking for an outcome to the war soon. This is an unusual Spanish-American War print, I believe by Prang, in an original frame. It shows the black troops charging San Juan Hill, and this is, I believe, one of the earliest depictions of black soldiers in actual combat. This is a series of map prints that were done for the 1940 San Francisco Bay Exposition, and it just shows the flora and fauna of the Pacific region. And it's called The Pageant of the Pacific by Miguel Covarrubias, a famous Mexican painter. This is Cultural Artifacts by Covarrubias of the Pacific region. Everything from the Easter Island statues to Mesoamerica, South America, and the Orient. That was also for the San Francisco Bay Exposition, 1940. This is another one of the plates from the San Francisco Bay Exposition of 1940. This shows the peoples of the Pacific. Micronesia up through Asia, all the way down to South America again. Quite a handsome representation of the people in their native best. This is a Canadian Broadcasting Company World War map, and shows the action and the routes around the world, the railroads, steamship lines, and it talks about the strategy. All the world is a battlefront, and this shows the different sides of the thing. The British flag, American flag, the Soviets, the Nazi symbol, and the Japanese rising sun taking over like an octopus in this area. This is Sebastian Adams' synchronological map of history. Of course, history started on Earth in 4004 BC, according to Mr. Adams. Cain and Abel, Enoch and Seth, Stone Age, through the Iron Age, Tower of Babel, Phoenicia, Egypt, number of biblical references throughout this, and great chromolithographic depictions of everything. The man had a massive amount of information to depict here, and here we come to the Anno Domini, at the birth of Christ, about 3,000 years, or 2,000 something years into history. Up here we have the ancient savage Britons and Stonehenge, which should have been back about 5 feet that way, all the way down to the colonial period and the presence of the United States, the development of this country, and the people who are on the line running the show now. As a collector at heart of 46 years of maps and globes, books with maps, I have accumulated an immense amount of material, and we now have them on display in Halls, Tennessee, probably the largest collection in private hands available for sale anywhere.